started. All right, may the words of my mouth and the meditation of mine heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our Redeemer, and it is in His name, which is His authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect tonight's message. Shalom. Hola, mi nombre es Kofi, ¿cómo está? Bonjour, je m'appelle Kofi, ça va? Ni hao, namaste, Osayana Kitabuya, Ohio, I see you, Manut, Ogwan, Kamsa, Kamsamida, Aloha, Ciao, Onson, Kabarigani, Akwamba, Madaase, Etese, Jambo, Mibini Kofi, Nidafra Kukatana the Wewe. Greetings, Laya Latav, greetings, Grand Rise, or sorry, greetings, Shalom, peace be upon everybody. But Anai, Kovai, Kwechelet, servants of Christ, Mashalom Chi. Shalom, family, peace. I am Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time, but being a voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. I have not been on this platform in particular in probably over a month, and very little even before then, as we were getting ready for Feast of Tabernacles, and then I took a break. And I'm just coming back after a couple weeks earlier this rising. So we're excited. Today marks officially the 2 weeks ago I had made the last YouTube video before today. So, excuse me, I'm not supposed to say the platform name. But welcome everybody. Hopefully you are enjoying yourself. If you didn't get a chance to see us earlier, welcome to you. Welcome back. Hopefully all is well with thee in thine house. Prayerfully everything is going well. We once again give all honor and praise to the Most High. We give all praise and honor to Him for my wife, the Honorable Amma, who lives a life that is able to be honored. As always, you can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. To the moderators, ministerial staff, SOC, Lottie Dottie, and everybody, we appreciate you so very much. And so, we're back at it. Prayerfully, those who need to be made aware that we're back at it will get the message and get the memo. But even if it's just a few of us on this evening, I'm excited and grateful and thankful to come in front of you guys. And hopefully everybody was able to catch the recordings that were being put out on the Google Calendar invites. Prayerfully, we were able to update those a little bit as well. So prayerfully, everybody will have those, with them for the next little while. And we're excited once again to be with you again. So we're going to go ahead and get into tonight's topic. I will more than likely be on tomorrow, even though normally Tuesdays is my day off, but I've had a lot of days off, so I will come in and do something probably brief, but do something tomorrow on the rising. I will take the evening off. Wednesday I will be off, but Elder Tamara will be on, and then Thursday in the rising will be prayer with Elder Anais, and then I will be on, and then we'll be back on and trucking. Prayerfully, I'll have a little something to show you guys when I show back up on Thursday as far as the book. Or at least you guys will be able to get the idea of it. Patreon, we sent a little bit to you guys already. I think I might have sent some to the ministerial staff as well. So you guys should be able to see some of that stuff as a group to kind of see where we're headed and see what the goal is of the book to help us out. It's basically kind of we're basically using it as an opportunity to have a new form of, I wouldn't say concordance, but have a Bible that can be read and be able to see the words, see the characters, see what things we're actually saying in succession properly, all that stuff. So prayerfully, you guys will see all those items very, very soon. And we're thankful and grateful once again to be on with you. Prayerfully, everybody is safe, everybody's well. Praying for Elder Maya and family as they are getting some stuff on the road, and prayerfully be back. Be in the chat with us in a little bit. Praying for safety and safe travels. As a reminder, too, if you look up, many of you should have received text already. As we get ready to stand on our feet and do our Bible pledge, many of you should have already either received via text or possibly email, Google Calendar invite at one point from last week, I believe. Should have seen the calendar, at least for the holy days. As a reminder, one more date needs to be added. I will be putting that stuff out again, prayerfully by Saturday. And prayerfully we'll have a couple of spaces, a couple changes you can make already. I'd like for you to add July 18th on there, especially for those who are able to go make it to New York. We'll be joining Pastor Houston, who's asked us to make sure that we baptize not only persons that will be coming for the gathering he's putting together, but also to baptize him and his wife. At least I believe that's what the plan is. So in the meantime, those of you who would like to attend, if you want to start getting yourselves together, that'll be July 18th next year. So if you'd like to go ahead and get yourselves together, add that to the calendar. We'll be there. Passover, which I believe, I'm going off the top of my head, I think it's April the 1st this year. So Passover, if you can join us, it's going to be in Tennessee. And Feast of Unleavened Bread, we're going to do over in, I'm not sure which dates yet, but we'll be doing the Feast of Unleavened Bread basically right after Passover in Kentucky. So we'll be going to the Noah's Ark replica. So if you're somebody who'd like to join us for that, and you want to put that in the calendar already, we are looking to go into Savannah, Georgia for the Memorial Day meetup this year as well, like we did the Washington, D.C. So we'll do another Memorial Day meetup, and those who'd like to go and see the church with the with the Hebrew characters written in them, and see some Gullah Geechee culture, and get a very interesting perspective on their belief system, while knowing that they were Hebrew and having the belief system and mindset, and even coding their stuff. That's why they have a different version of Hebrew. We actually were looking at stuff we can kind of see, like maybe where the Tasade and some other things are in the pews and stuff. So that was very interesting, but they've been able to decipher a little bit of it, but it was put into code. That's why it was actually made cursive. So a lot of interesting things that we learned, and it was great to go there, and we had a lot of fun. So prayerfully, if you want to put those things, that's the Memorial Day meetup for Savannah, Georgia, Tennessee, April 1st, around April 1st, a couple days before, and probably one day after, for Passover. And then we'll be looking at the Feast of Unleavened Bread being in Kentucky, or wherever that site is where they made the replica of Noah's Ark. And then July 18th, for those that are in part of SOC Northeast, we'll be coming up your way to do a baptism for others, and we've set it up to where everybody can get baptized together if you'd like to come and get baptized with us. Aman. So we're going to take care of all that together, and we'll have more stuff coming out, more dates that will possibly be added. Besides that, maybe one more date, as far as we're looking at possibly doing we have to figure out where and how to do it, and make sure that we can make sure that it's blocked off and secure and all that. But we're looking at possibly doing a revival somewhere as well. Detroit, we're definitely coming to you guys at least once this year. We just got to figure out when and how. Maybe even at the same place we used before, but we're gonna figure that out. So I'll be talking with some of you guys who are up there soon, and we'll be trying to put our heads together and figure some stuff out. Alrighty, but let's go ahead. Glad to be on first full day with you guys in quite some time. So we praise y'all for that. We had early rising Bible study session, live session, and now the night I forget what we were calling it. I got to go look back. We had a new name for it, not Night Start Live. That was kind of but it was something else that came out of that where we were talking. So we're gonna was it Real Talk or something like that? Something. But we thank you for joining us. We're gonna make sure we advertise it right. Also, too, don't forget, we're gonna be giving some stuff for children and working with one of our sisters, brother and sister, married couple, Brother Mike and Sister Angela, who help out with children in Africa. We're going to make sure that we begin to do some things with them starting on Thursday. So keep your ears to the ground with that. I'm on, but with a lot of things moving for next year, a lot of programs going on, a lot of things that we got in place to try and get some wheat and some other things to you guys in different places that we can get off the land for next year. So just keep us in prayer. Let's keep it moving. Let's be diligent. Let's be obedient. And we're going to show why we need to do so, right, by being led by Holy Spirit tonight. So we'll say our Bible pledge real quick and jump right in. So while we're doing it, let me say shalom and peace, everybody, once again. How you doing, Elder Anai, Sister Deborah, Sister Carla, Sister Deborah, Auntie Marion, Brother TJ, Sister Mignon, Brother Rodney, Brother Darius, Sister Deborah, Big Brother Thomas, Azine, number one. I don't know if I'm even saying that correctly. Mr. Diesel, everybody, we appreciate your presence. Thanks for being on with us one more again. Sister Taylor, everybody. Oh, by the way, if you have children, sometime next month, not sure when, probably in the middle of the month, we will start trying to have our Shabbat school's been going on, but we'll try to have our children's, the teachings lessons for homeschool and all that. Alrighty, all right. Herb John, okay. Welcome. Shalom. Peace. All right, so here we go. You can just put your right hand in the air, repeat after me. This is my Bible. This is my sword. And this will I trust. For Yahshua is Lord. No sword of God shall ever be heard. For this is my Bible. And this is Yah's word. Atzam Yechavach. Aman. When Yahweh Shem, his name is authority, let it be done unto us. You may be seated to go back to what you're doing in the presence of the Most High Yah. Tonight, we're going to talk about American exceptionalism. American exceptionalism. Now, many of you probably heard this term used several times, but we're going to talk about it again regardless. Once again, tonight, we're going to speak on American exceptionalism. This has to do with, in our belief system, if you're like, well, how does this tie in, this and that? We're talking about the beast. Right, we're talking about the mindset of the beast, and we're talking about even Psalm 123, verse 4, where persons have been trained to be at ease with our scorn, including us. How you doing, Sister Omika? Right. So tonight we're going to take time out to talk about American exceptionalism. Now, American exceptionalism is kind of a broad term now, which many terms become, right? So, but if we do a little bit of terminology, right, it's a study of the term American exceptionalism, we will discover that American exceptionalism basically is a way that persons say that, America, this thing that you've been taught, that simply being American or following the American dream makes you exceptional. And by the way, that can be a yes or no thing, but mostly not, especially the way we're going to talk about it on today. Because I'd like to actually go through the term. Whenever we go through these things, we should be able to break this stuff down. How you doing, Aaron? Thanks for the love. How you doing, big brother Charles, double OG, triple OG? Right? So when we talk about American exceptionalism, remember, anytime you have a word that has an ISM on it, it means it's a system. Shalom, Sister Danielle, praise Yah. Yeah, we've been doing the, so, when we send the links out and everything, the text train, I'm going to try to redo the text train for our new parents and stuff. So, but when we hit up in November, be ready. I think, what are our dates we normally use? I think French is taught on Tuesday, Kung Fu is taught on Wednesday, Spanish is taught on Thursday, and we were adding mathematics. We never got down to mathematics, and then of course we have Shabbat school. So yeah, so all that information will be coming out soon. But hold on to those days if you can, if you've got babies. We'll be sending some stuff out to you guys pretty soon. Right? How you doing, Big Roy? How you doing, Seth? Also, too, don't forget about Sister Carla. She has a homeschool guide and stuff, which we might try to use some of that as well for teaching and stuff as well. So if you can support her, she got some great stuff in there for you and your children. I believe you can also get it off of a couple different websites, at least one. Oh, also don't forget Elder Anais. I'm talking about my book and stuff. Elder Anais' book is available as well, right? And talking about, I'm not getting Elder Anais. You're gonna have to put the title in the chat for me. It's about basically, being quiet but also being powerful. Right, and her talking about her life and her situations and things. So if you'd like to support some of those things going out, don't forget we still have brothers and sisters doing great things. Persons that make bracelets, whether it be Brother Dwayne, whether it be Sister Greta, stuff that's coming out as far as clothing, whether it be brother. Actually, there's a couple other persons talking about clothing line, but I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to let them do their thing because I don't know how ready they are, right? But we have all these different persons. So prayerfully, everybody will be able to, to support each other in these endeavors. But anyways, for tonight, I'm sorry, I was thinking about Brother Jermaine with the clothing and stuff and everything. Prayerfully, I'm going to be able to order some new stuff and be able to show you guys it before it gets too cold. It's starting to get cold out this piece. So I'm on, right? But tonight we're going to talk about American exceptionalism, right? Tonight we're going to be talking about American exceptionalism. And in American exceptionalism, we want to make sure that we recognize what it really is. Now, ISM on any word makes it a system. How you doing, One Who Whispers? Thanks for being on. Thank you for the love. Thank you all for the likes, shares, subscriptions, hitting notification tabs, even donations and things of that nature. We appreciate, right? So, and all of these different things that we have going on, American exceptionalism is something where it's become kind of a catch-all to say that, America is great and you got to get the white picket fence and have 2.5 children, whatever that means, have the house, have the cars, whoop capitalism, whoop capitalism's hind parts, and you should be able to get to another level, right? But when we look at this as ISM, it's a system, right? So it's a system of what is exceptional. However, if it's something that is exceptional, then we have to start, I'm going to make up a term, if it's exceptionality, which means the prism that one will look at to see what something is exceptional, then the prism is America or American, right? The prism is America or American. So here lies the problem. In American exceptionalism, if the prism is American, how you doing, Sister Allison? How you doing, Sister Gertrude? If the prism we're looking at is for to see what is exceptional is America, we have a problem if we're not honest about what an American is and what America has become or what America has always been. What do I mean by that? First of all, we know here, according to law, according to the truth, according to Amat, that if we were to go by an actual American, the original American is defined as a copper-colored person indigenous to the Americas. All right? Now, this can be off a little bit, especially when we start talking about, forgive me, I'm using a term that we're not supposed to use anymore, so forgive me, but I'm just using this term so that everybody is aware of whom I speak, but if we're talking about the Inuit or the term that we're not supposed to use, Eskimo, if we're talking about certain persons can be of different colors who were here, right? So persons who go, everybody in America had to be dark-skinned, right? Copper as if they were burnt in the furnace. That's not exactly what it means, but the original identity of an American is a copper-colored person indigenous to the Americas, which means that we have to talk about Omekshi, right? A word that's not really correct, but a word that we know, Aztec or Inca, right? We have to talk about those indigenous. We have to talk about the Khalifa people, which is where you get Californians from, or those who are Mississippian. Yes, Mississippi was a group of persons. So Mississippians had mounds or pyramids that reached into Georgia, right? Reached into Tennessee, reached into Mississippi and Alabama, right? We have to be honest about those who are Anakitoya, who we call today Cherokee, right? These are persons that would have been deemed as Americans. Wampanoag, right? Who were the persons who were really desecrated when everybody came in the Northeast originally. Who we call the Iroquois or the Haudenosaunee, right? These are Americans. And by the way, I'm just using United States of America outside of a couple that I talked about that are Central America or South American, right? But we even went up to Canada, right? Talking about Inuit and stuff like that. Those who lived in Greenland, those who lived in Alaska initially and originally, right? Technically, those who lived, on the Hawaiian Islands, depending on when the Polynesians got there, right? Or the Polynesians, Austronesians, Melanesians who have traveled many different places around the world. So when we say American, you have to be careful, first of all, because one of the things that we have when it comes to American exceptionalism is that many persons believe that Americans are only part of the so-called United States of America, or what we would deem, ultimately, lawfully as the United States Corporation. Because according to 28 USC 3002, y'all know where I'm going, 15, subsection A, which is United States Code 2828, USC, United States Code 3002, 3002, 1515, subsection A. One more time for the persons in the back. 28 USC 3002, 15, subsection A. The United States is not a country, but it is in fact a corporation, right? So you have to realize that in order to be part of the corporation, one must actually be part of something that is incorporated, right? Which means that you are part of somebody's legal fantasy, because if you start talking about this country as a trust, which is talked about as in 28 USC 3002, 15, subsection B, right? A trust or even an LLC or something of that nature is considered to be a fake or false person, right? How you doing, Into the Deep, right? So the United States itself is a false person. It is not a country, but is a fake person, right? And those who are citizens or belong to it are not only fake persons, but they must be enslaved to it and by it, right? So if we're talking about an American exceptionalism, right? The problem with American exceptionalism is that we have to believe that everything that is American is exceptional, especially by the modern definition. Salah, Aman, right? and give me a second. I'm gonna grab some water. I'm gonna say that one more again, and we're gonna do a true salah, right? And just go inside and grab something real quick. But if we're gonna believe in American exceptionalism, one must believe and agree with that everything that is so-called American must be exceptional. Remember, ISM on a system makes it a system. So if it's not exceptional, the system of so-called America breaks apart. Salah. Okay. Found, well, I knew where the water was. It took me forever even day to get it out my book bag. All right. So we're back. Okay. All right. That's the last time I'm leaving until we end. Unless I'm on daddy duty, so unless I got to run and take care of baby boy. All right. But 28 U.S.C. 3002 15 subsection A teaches us the United States is a corporation. 28 U.S.C. 3002 15 subsection B tells us, amongst other things, that it is a trust, which means it is a false person. Right? If it's a corporation, it's a fake person. It's a dead person. Hence the word corpse. Corporation. It has been corpsed. It has been killed. The act, and therefore the shion, or the tion, the shun at the end, is telling us that it is now a person, place, or thing that is a corpse. Right? And as a trust, it is therefore is now an artificial person entrusted to its owner. Right? These are fancy ways of saying colonization, or what we would now call today territorial. Right? This is a fancy way of saying that there's now, we have territories. You know, Puerto Rico is now a territory. It's part of a trust. Therefore, the persons that are there who are asking for freedom, they're asking for their right to be actual sovereigns, right? And be able to be in tune and have free will to deal with their own so-called destiny. But they won't be given that chance or opportunity because the United States makes more money off of you dying, right, to your sensibilities, to your culture, to who you are, right? There's less money in you living for yourself. Matter of fact, when you find out money is not real, you realize that, you know, money should be there to get you real things. I'm not saying we shouldn't learn how to use money. We should. We must. That being said, you'll find out very quickly, you know, that money now especially is numbers in a machine. And if you were to take away money, those of us who have a poor mentality a lot of times would still be poor, right? Because whatever would be the next thing would be something that we still wouldn't reverence enough, right? We have Yah, for example. How you doing, blessed Jewel? We have the Most High, Yahweh Elohim, and yet we still have persons who are hard-pressed to actually give unto him so that he could give unto you bountifully, right? A poor mindset doesn't just deal with so-called fiat cash, right? But we say all this to make it a point to show you American exceptionalism becomes tough. See, American exceptionalism at one point, you have to realize it's really beast exceptionalism. It's making the devil exceptional. Because before it was American exceptionalism, it was the slave owners who were the British. It was English exceptionalism. It was French exceptionalism. It was Portuguese exceptionalism, going back to enslaving us in the 1300s. Right? It was Viking exceptionalism, right? It was Franc exceptionalism. It was exceptionalism of Rome, exceptionalism of the Greeks, exceptionalism of the Japanese that caused them to cause all types of headache and chaos and stuff like that. Exceptionalism of Korea, where enslavement was really crazy and still exists, by the way. We don't talk about that, right? So, right, exceptionalism of Papa Doc and Baby Doc, right, to where it was CIA exceptionalism, which is basically, you know, low-key American exceptionalism. So when we have this thing, you have to realize American exceptionalism really is saying that anything that is so-called American, especially nowadays, must be exceptional. That means anything. Can I say that again? Can we say that? We're going to say that one more time. Anything, any single thing that is considered to be American must be exceptional. If not, the system falls apart. This is why it's dangerous. See, you ever thought? See, this is why when somebody says, "Make America Great Again," once again, I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. I say that quite often, but I need to say it here because somebody will try to, move the goalposts and call me something I'm not, and think that I'm getting into who you vote for and all that. And in my belief system, we do not vote. Right? So this is not this conversation. I could care less if you take back the Senate Democrats or if you keep the Senate Republicans, because at the end of the day, you're going to continue to do what you're supposed to, which is get worse. Right? that's what the system is designed to do, because it's part of a more sinister system that's satanic called the beast. Right? And anything that propagates it or helps it stand up, right, that allows it to continue to grow and feeds it, it's the second beast. Right? And it's something that gives us a number of a name and authority that we know is tied to Nero Caesar, right? Look up Nero Caesar and look up what's done today, and all the stuff that you see behind the scenes is done to men, women, children, etc. And we know what time it is, right? We don't have to really work that hard to see what's going on, right? So when we look at this properly, whenever I say anything about America is not exceptional, the system is at risk. This is why, once again, if somebody says "Make America Great Again," the second that you hear somebody say "When was America great?" right? That's when all of a sudden there's an argument. Why? That's when all some persons are willing to fight you, to off you, to do all types of wild things to you, to say all types of things, to not think twice about downing you and making you, being filled with contempt for you and making you the scourge of their so-called seven C's. Why is it that you're so terrible? Why is it that you say in America, which "Make America Great Again," which has existed over 40 years now as a slogan, right? If you recall, Ronald Reagan, first time he was ran on "Make America Great Again." Right, and he was tied into Richard Nixon and all these persons that came before them and before them, going back even before the presidents that existed before George Washington. It was always, we need to make something great again, right? So anytime you speak to the fallacy or the lunacy and show, right? How you doing, Thomas? Thanks for being on, and thank y'all for the love. And thank you for sharing the live as well. If anytime you see and call out the hypocrisy and the lunacy of the system, right, and show how it's not great, what you are doing is you are attacking the system, right? Because the system must be exceptional. Anything that America is based off of has to be exceptional, or else the system cannot continue to move and work the way that it does. Right? So if somebody says, "When was America great?" it's a problem, because if we see any cracks, it means the system crumbles. Right? So American exceptionalism basically just means anything that has been taught to you and I as what has formed America, right? It has to be kept intact. Manifest destiny, therefore, must be not spoken against, it must be protected. Although manifest destiny says it is and I'm not even making this up, I'm telling you exactly what it is. Manifest destiny says that by the way, it's very Christian. Christians believe in, many Christians believe in the doctrine of predestiny. And they believe that somebody is predestined no matter what you do. It's kind of like the Force. No matter what you do, if you kill 75 persons today and keep doing that every day for the rest of your life, it doesn't matter. If you're predestined to go to heaven, you're going to heaven. Right? So the same belief system, the same Puritans even, for those of you who call them Puritans, how you doing, Wakanda? The same so-called Puritans even that came over from England, they believed in being predestined. How you doing, Tabitha? Right? They believed in being predestined. They believe that no matter what happens, they're going to heaven. And they deserve to be able to take your stuff, because if you're not a so-called white Christian male, especially, then heaven is not for you. Right? How you doing, Kofi? Excuse me. How you doing, Daniel? So what is this telling us? This means that therefore manifest destiny now comes out of these persons who think the same way. Manifest destiny says, from sea to shining sea, right, that their God tells them that they are supposed to conquer and make everything look like what they're supposed to do. Matter of fact, there's another term called the white man's burden, which means that, hey, we didn't even want this, but it's a burden from on high. That's what the belief is. That the so-called white man, and those who think that they are such thing, usually, right, if you would believe there is a such thing as a white person, you've been influenced by this, that you, and I don't mean that in a negative light, by the way. I've been off for a little while, so just in case somebody doesn't know what I'm talking about, the color white is not an actual color. White is an expression, or it's an adjective, and it actually means to be not color, but it actually means to have less color. It means to have no color. It means to be bright. It means to be reflective. It means to be translucent. It means to be see-through, right? This is why polar bear fur is clear. This is why, right, void of color, another way of expressing it, right? And how you know unique. So polar bear fur under a microscope is what? Clear, right? Snow under a microscope is what? Clear, right? A white blood cell under a microscope is what? Clear, right? So when you say something is white, it can have no melanin, or it can have no chlorophyll, right? But something that's alive, especially let's talk human beings, right? If we're alive, all of us, whether you want to argue what's the center of your melanin, you still have melanin, right? Whether you want to talk about sulfur or selenium, at the end of the day, to be alive, one must, right? No matter how so-called white one appears to be, right? So the so-called blackest person and the so-called whitest person that exists right now both come basically from the same continent, right? And even the same region, I believe, pretty close to each other in Africa. So regardless of how you see them when they were born, they still have to be melanated, or else they cannot live. Now they might have one might have less melanin than the other, but it does not mean that they are still not melanated, they are still not alive. So we have to be even careful with these terms that we use, that we've been taught to make our points, when many of them are not even amat, they're not even true. Right, and how you doing, Summer King? And is it viewer? Somebody who's part of the community, thank you for joining us, right? So when we're speaking on these things and we're talking about American exceptionalism, you have to realize that anything that takes away from the teachings of what you've been taught as far as the foundation of America and what has made America great, anytime you go against it, you are now a problem, because you are breaking apart a beastly system, right? We have to be honest, right? If you say to somebody, the Constitution is for all people, because it says we the people, but the word people means nation, and you have to recognize that many of you were not even considered to be a person. What you mean? What you mean by that? That doesn't make sense. Yeah, women were not considered to be persons. They didn't have rights. They were just more protected. Native Americans were called the savage in those writings, right? Persons who were considered to be black, which, by the way, Native Americans and so-called black persons ended up being the same persons anyways, whether you believe that they were already here, you believe that they were mixed in through slavery, or you believe that they, ran away and became, fighters for each other, et cetera, right? Either way, you're talking about the same people after a while, right? And so, or at least those who became the same people, or same so-called tribes. Tribe is a really bad word to use, but, so-called nations or tribes of these persons, right? But you have to recognize that so-called black persons, one drop rule, right? So so-called black persons, guess what? You were considered to be what? You were considered to be property. You were considered to be bond. When they say bond in there, it's not James Bond. It's not shaken or stirred, right? You were considered to be bond. Shalom, Ahed Shirley, how you doing? And if the boys are watching and listening, right? All praises to the Most High for everybody on. Prayerfully all is well with everyone, right? So we don't recognize and realize, we don't even think about what's going on, right? How you doing, Satrina? Thanks for being on with us. Thanks for sharing live. So in all these different things, we're not even recognizing. We're not thinking twice about it. We go through our stuff and we just go, oh yeah, the Constitution, we the people. The Constitution does not mean you. This is why you have to realize that you need to be an uppercase C citizen, right, which is a sovereign, and not a lowercase c citizen. But we don't even know that they changed the uppercase to lowercase from the 14th Amendment on. We have no clue what that means, because we don't care about law. That's why your churches don't care about laws, because your churches support Christianity, not biblical truth. Because your churches tell you that Revelation chapter 20 verses 12 and 13 are a lie, when it says that your works, right, what you have faith in, you have to work it. If not, then your name won't be written in the book of life. See, when you live around lawlessness, it makes its way not only around the pulpits and the churches, but the same kind of pulpit is what Trump preaches from, Biden preaches from, Obama preaches from, Clinton preaches from, Bush preaches from, Reagan preaches from, Carter preaches from. It's the same pulpit. It's the same religion. For some reason in your mind, see, we forget, even if you're talking about biblical, right? If you're talking about Bible, for those of you who believe in such things, and even if not, if you believe it's just something we can learn from this real quick, right? When we're talking about Bible, that's a nation. They didn't just do that in the temple. They didn't just do it when they met up once a week. They didn't just do it on Shabbat, or some of you would say, do it on Sunday. They lived together and performed this and did this all the time. Right? If not, you break apart the fabric of the nation. Well, the same thing goes for American exceptionalism. You are living in a corporation which is systemic and systematically has put things in place to make you believe that certain things have to always be in order to be called American. And if it doesn't match the American values and traditions and ways, then it breaks apart the American system. That's why anytime you actually tell the truth about the fact that when somebody says, when was America great? Persons get upset at you because you're not exceptional as an American, or at least you're not being exceptional because you're in the system. So you must comprehend, it is not the fact that you are an American or a so-called good or bad American that makes one exceptional in American exceptionalism. Remember, American exceptionalism, ISM, makes it a system. It is a system. So as long as you are doing what you're supposed to do in the system, then you are supposed to be exceptional. Now, we know that there's issues with that, and we'll break that down a little bit, but I just need to make that a point again. If you are in the system, supposedly you are exceptional, right? I've been in the military, and they tell you, everybody in the military, be thankful for their service, this and that, and I'm not saying I disagree with that, at least not wholeheartedly, but I will tell you that there are some persons that have put on the uniform, and they were not exceptional, including to a certain degree myself, as I was learning how to be a sailor, or some who learned how to be soldiers, Marines, airmen, etc. And I'm pretty sure if someone was honest with you, even though we respect everybody's decision, no matter why you made a decision, we respect your decision to defend the United States Corporation, or what at one time we thought was the United States of America. We still, right? We honor you. We honor you giving your life for something that you believe in, or even if you didn't believe it when you got there, you dang sure probably believed it when you got out of boot camp. And if you gave your life for anything that you consider to be a value, right, one must recognize your sacrifice. Because not everybody, all these persons will talk trash about those who will lay their life down, but they ain't got no blood to show. You know, it's always interesting that persons who defend our sisters, somebody got something to say about it, but they ain't got no blood to show them defending their sisters, or their wives, or their daughters, right? Maybe they'll do it for their daughters, right? But they ain't got nothing to show for it. You can say whatever you want, and we're going to talk about, in the series we got going on, we're going to reveal some truths about Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. that might shock some of you. That doesn't mean that he's not somebody we should still look up to as an example, but we'll talk about some truths. And I'm not talking about the sleeping thing. I'm talking about his actual spiritual beliefs, you know, to give you a head start. We're going to get into it probably next week, but to give you a head start, a lot of you may not even know, like, for example, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. himself is probably not what you would label a Christian. For those who are surprised when I say I'm not a Christian, but I believe in the Bible, he was not a Christian. And I don't mean in the same way as far as what we believe. I mean, he didn't even believe that Yahashua, or as many of you call Jesus, he didn't even believe that Jesus was necessarily a real person. And even if he was, he didn't believe that he was actually literally the Son of the Most High. He believed that so-called Jesus was the Son of God, like you could be the son of God or the daughter of God. How you doing, Sir Stephen? Greetings to you, my brother. Glad to see you on. Right. So there's a lot of stuff we've been taught. That's why I say we have to be careful. But it doesn't mean that we don't, say, hey, he still gave blood, right, for us as a people, right? And it doesn't mean that he knew exactly that he was wrong or this and that or whatever. We don't know. That's why you have to let Yah put people in heaven or hell, right? Right? You have to let him be in control. I have no heaven or hell to put anybody in. It makes life easier when you just say, hey, I'm supposed to follow the law and let Yah do what he says he'll do, right? I can use the law as my guide, the Tanakh, the guide, the Torah, the guide, but I'm not going to act like I have the right to open up the gates, right? Tell Abaddon to do his thing. That's not my responsibility. It makes life easier for me, right? To not try to judge person's salvation. I let Yah do that, right? Prayerfully, you do what you need to do to work out your own salvation. Anyways, but yeah, so we have this thing called American exceptionalism. And American exceptionalism becomes dangerous because American exceptionalism is based off of a lie, which is that anything in the so-called United States of America that has ever been done has always been righteous. That's what American exceptionalism basically is. It's a system designed to make sure that everything that was ever done is righteous. And just like Christianity, when it comes to the mixing of iron and clay, persons will come through and take history, whether they be on the left or the right, and change it to make what they want to happen happen. For example, Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln was always a great president, wasn't he? Abraham Lincoln was great. Abraham Lincoln fought for what was right. Abraham Lincoln always wanted the slaves to be freed. Abraham Lincoln, that's why he ran for president. He ran on freeing the slaves, did he not? That's why the South seceded. Matter of fact, if you think about it, therefore, even the persons who say that the North was the righteous cause, they have to start teaching the same thing the South does, which is that, hey, it was actually, or I'm sorry, they have to teach against what the South does, because they have to teach you that it wasn't fought on slaves, on states' rights. It was fought for slavery, right? That's what they have to teach you. Happy to be back. Thanks for being on with us, right? That's what they have to teach. In order to keep this up, they have to teach us these things, correct? You were taught this in school, even if you believed it or not, but you were taught this stuff. You read books on it. It was in your civics class. It was in your world history class. It was in your history class, History 1, History 2. It was in your college, your college lectures from your professor, right? That you needed to recognize that Lincoln is great. Matter of fact, Lincoln is fought against. Would Lincoln be more a Democrat today, or would he be a Republican? Lincoln was a Republican, and even though persons have changed, the right has changed from being Democrats to now being Republicans, and the left has changed from being Republicans to being Democrats. Hey, I'm sorry, they've changed from being the left has changed from being Republicans to Democrats. They believe that Lincoln would have supported them, even though both have changed parties, right? And Lincoln was all this, but the problem with that is, once again, American exceptionalism. If we tell the truth, it begins to fray and fracture these things. Number one, we were taught that the Civil War was freeing us. Matter of fact, we were taught that if it wasn't for the Civil War, you still wouldn't be a slave. Problem with this is, though, then you have to deny history, because what about the Seminole Wars, and what about the Gullah Geechee Wars? How you doing, Sister Quotation? How you doing, Mrs. On Fire? All right, thanks for being on. Thank y'all for reposting. Right? The Seminole Wars, the Gullah Geechee Wars. Are those a thing? Did those things happen? And by the way, Sister Quotation, I'm going to try to reach out to you guys again. I tried to reach out. We were in Texas September for Feast of Trumpets. We met up for the holy day. So I don't know if you guys got the text or not. I didn't get a response for you, or hopefully all is well with you and Brother Allen out there. I don't know if something changed or something like that, but if you can reach out, or one of you guys can reach out if y'all don't mind, so we can make sure that we, stand up with you guys. Hopefully all is well, and you guys are staying safe out there. Hopefully family's well too. But yeah, so, excuse me. So, so you were taught these things, but nobody ever taught you that you were fighting for yourself already. Right? Matter of fact, for those of you who come with us Memorial Day weekend to Savannah, Georgia next year, you'll discover that right next to the church that shows all the stuff, and it's Gullah Geechee believers who believe they were Israelites and all these different things, right? They all, and some of them still slaves, owned their building while they were slaves. And the way that I don't want to give too much away, because I'd have to do a whole thing to explain it, but you'll find it to be very powerful, like very emotional, when they even just tell you the story before you even start walking around the church building. But when you go right outside of it, right out the front, you'll see right out front, before you get to the place where there's all the shopping and everything, there's a statue. Those of you who've seen Reclaiming the Throne, whether you've watched it with us a couple times or whether you've seen it on your own, it's on Tubi.tv. Been on the road? Okay, praise God. Right? And you see Reclaiming the Throne, you can see on Tubi.tv. I would suggest you watch it. I think it's in there's 3 parts. I think it's in part number 1. You'll see that there's a statue. And it's, now I was under the impression that the statue was of American Revolutionary soldiers. And they had a drummer, a little drummer boy who was actually a Haitian, who then goes back to Haiti and fights for independence for Haiti. Right? They fought, but here's the thing that they don't tell you. Haitians left a place where they were destitute and enslaved in France. I'm sorry, in France, under France's regime in Haiti, and they left and came to the States and fought in places. You'll see stuff over there like Jekyll Island, Tigby Island, Savannah. These are names that you should get, be aware of or whatever. But Jekyll Island, Tigby Island, what's the other one? I forget. We didn't get a chance to go to that one. But they're all right next to each other. And you'll discover when you go to these places that this was all huge Confederacy stuff or whatever. And on the Sherman March, persons such as these brothers left their country, and there were sisters too, but they don't get the play that they should. I don't think they have the sisters in the statue, but there were a bunch of Haitians who left and fought, right, and fought on the side of the Americans, believing that if they fought for righteousness, then that maybe they would be able to be free here, right? That was during the Revolutionary War, of course, right? They didn't get that, and so the little drummer boy goes back and becomes basically a Haitian prince and helps to cause revolution in Haiti, right? These are our people. Right across from where you're going to see persons who are slaves building a church, getting ownership over it. When you go and you see there, you'll see that the doors are red. In Gullah Geechee culture, the red is saying that, that it's paid for. So you go there, you'll see the doors, and that the doors are red. You'll see the carpet is red. It represents the blood of Christ as well, but also represents to them in Gullah Geechee culture that is paid for. And so the slaves that were able to own it, it was a great sense of pride. They still do, have never not owned it ever since they were able to get it. Matter of fact, they started their church before they got that property, right? And have some other churches that they started as well in the same area that have still been owned by those people, right? But they did so while they were slaves, but they fought. We fought hard for our own independence. We fought hard for our own freedom, right? We fought a revolution for ourselves, and this is something that's not taught. Now, if you teach this, though, what does it do to American exceptionalism? It rips apart the fabric. Because now, you're not exceptional just because you're an American, whatever that means. You're exceptional because of your story. Right? And now the more you learn your story and the more you progress in that, the more you teach that, you begin to teach the next generation that they don't have to be an exceptional American to be an exceptional human being. Yeah, that's right. So when you see those big doors, if you go there next year or whenever you go, if you go on I think they have a virtual tour, probably not as great as being there physically, but if that's what you can do, maybe we'll try to see if we can do both simultaneously, right? They allow you to take pictures and everything. I don't think they'll allow us to video record, but maybe we'll be able to take some pictures and put something together for you guys later on, right? But actually, I have enough pictures that maybe when we do it, those that can't come, maybe, we'll put together something special for you guys to see what we're seeing, who knows, right? But it's American exceptionalism. That's a lie. That, hey, if it wasn't for us, you wouldn't be free. Back to Abraham Lincoln, right? Abraham Lincoln, he got married. He got married to a woman named Mary Todd. She becomes Mary Todd Lincoln. Guess what? Mary Todd Lincoln was a slave owner. That's right, big bro. For real. Haiti has been doing, Haiti's the reason why there's a Louisiana Purchase, right? in the 1800s. Yeah, 1800s. Right? Haiti changed up the game. Haiti's the reason why France lost the power they had. Right? Haiti's the reason why a lot of African colonies eventually have to go back over. It took some years, but eventually they had to give them up. Right? Haiti had to pay reparations once this America joined in with France to put them back under, and then they still were able to pay reparations in record speed. Even though, how do you pay reparations? They need to pay reparations to France. France, with the help of America and other places, came together and came down on them. And they still were able to pay reparations to get freedom. And then the CIA took over and then put Papa Doc and Baby Doc in charge. Right, if you know about them. Right, but yeah, you're right about that. Haiti has done quite a bit. But I'm just trying to say this thing of American exceptionalism, when you start to break stuff down, I'm not saying that there's never been an exceptional American, but one cannot say that they're an exceptional just because they're a so-called America, if the place that you're now calling America, or the United States of America at least, is not what you claim it to be. And like we said, it's bigger than just the United States of America, because you have to say Canada's exceptional. Problem with that is Canada has done just as much, if not worse, to the Native Americans in the so-called United States of America. You have to say Mexico's exceptional, but then you have to say, well, wait a minute, Mexico, sure, they did have a so-called black president, half black, president at one point, and they did get rid of slavery in Mexico before. But are we trying to act like, racism, so-called racism, white supremacy didn't exist in Mexico and still doesn't? Right? In Guatemala? Are we saying that everything's straight in Costa Rica? They asked Fidel Castro what he was going to do about racism. He didn't say racism didn't exist. He said, we know it exists, but right now we're trying to just make sure that we can survive. Right? So if you Cubano, you deal with it. Puerto Ricano, you already, shoot, they don't want Bad Bunny, right? And I don't even know, I know Bad Bunny is a fixture of his community. I'm not going to be disrespectful. I know, that there's some people that say he's this or that, he's maybe gay or blah, blah. I don't know. But, just the fact that he's going to be at the Super Bowl, they're trying to find everything they can about him because they don't like him. But, hey, you are the ones that made his country a colony that you call a territory. And so if it's going to be a territory, then he's an American by your definition. Why is he less of an American than you? Why is he less of an American than you? Why did he have to cancel his tours? A lot of you might not even know, if you don't know who I'm talking about. Bad Bunny is a musical artist, very popular one, very popular in Puerto Rico, because during one of the last times that they were fighting for their independence and saying that they want independence from the United States of America, one of the last times that they were fighting against it, he fought not only for Puerto Rican rights, but also for the rights of gays and things like that. Now, whether we agree with homosexuality or not, right, that being said, he's somebody that fought for his people, and for Puerto Ricans, we respect the fact that he means a lot to them, okay? And so, and also too, though, he's somebody who was forced to be an American, but he had to cancel his tour, a lot of his tour dates. I don't know if he canceled the whole tour, but I know he canceled certain tour dates because there was a fear that ICE would be outside arresting anybody that looked like they just so happened to not be from the United States of America. Right? Does that sound like American exceptionalism? I mean, technically it is, because they'll have to change the mindset of it and thought process. You have ICE agents who are out here getting in trouble for the way that they deal with our people. And I said our people. Yeah, our people. Because some of them are Israel, but also too, some of them are human beings. And although I'm not in a position to take care of all human beings, we're not going to teach that they're not human. We're not going to teach that because you look like something, therefore you should go ahead and be escorted out. We're not going to teach like we shouldn't have humanity in our hearts and say that, hey, somebody's people are going through something, and that when we are going through something similar, we should go ahead. We're not going to act like we shouldn't pray for them. And how you doing as an aviator pilot? Thanks for being part of the community. How you doing, Anthony Garcia? Shalom, shalom, peace to you. Right? Ras Kalu, if I can't remember if I'm saying that correctly or not. Thanks for being on. Right? So these are things that we're going through quite a bit. We're experiencing still to this day, and we're dealing with a lot of American exceptionalism. Matter of fact, American exceptionalism comes from the doctrine of discovery, which was something that the Roman Catholic Church started executing in 1452, made it official in 1493 after after the Moors were defeated in Spain in 1491, and Christopher Columbus was sent to look for Negro slaves in 1492. Then the doctrine of discovery was put into full effect by the Roman Catholic Church in 1493. If you know who the Negro is, not what you think a Negro is, meaning black. There's negro in Espanol has become black, but if you go over to España, morena is ellos. I didn't say that correctly. No sé, lo siento. How you doing, Brother Jacob? Right? But how you doing? CYN is it sin? I don't know if I'm saying it right. Thanks for being part of the community, right? But you'll forget those things happen once again because we weren't taught. Maybe you didn't forget, you just never taught these things. So here we are arguing on behalf of this, that, or whatever, and you're getting into something once again called American exceptionalism, which is a system that says that whatever America has been taught to you to be, as far as land of the free and home of the brave, that has to be it no matter what, right? George Washington, you can't teach persons that on at Mount Vernon, the manor of George Washington, who also married a woman, and he married her specifically because of how many slaves she had. She had about 75% of the slaves they would have together. That's one of the reasons he cites that he married her, right? And he knew that he'd be able to own her slaves. That was one of the biggest things that a woman had at her disposal back then, because she couldn't even own land in a lot of places, especially down south. But a woman could always own property that was known as slaves. Don't ever forget this. Persons have lied to you even about what the three-fifths compromise means. The three-fifths compromise does not mean that you were 60% of a human being. No. Persons have, this is a mismanagement of a truth. It is true that you were not full human being, but you were not 60% of a human being. You were considered to be settled, 0% of a human being. As long as you had one drop of so-called black blood in you, you were considered to be what? 0% of a human being, right? Which means that the three-fifths compromise was not about your humanity. The three-fifths compromise was about the South having to pay 3/5 of the taxes on you, and the North only having to pay 2/5, since the South had more property or more of you, as well as more land and stuff too. But they had more of you, and since they had more of you, the North didn't think it was fair that they would have to pay as many taxes as the South. So the South and the North came to a compromise and said, we'll pay 3/5, you pay 2/5. So when you say we the people, you got to be careful about who you're talking about, because you got to be considered a person before you can be considered a people. Remember, the word people is not plural for person. The plural for person is persons. People means nation. Before you can be part of a nation, you got to at least be a human being. If not, you're just property. Thanks for being part of the community. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce it. SLICCP. Please forgive me. Right. Thanks for being on, being part of the community. Right. So you're having a really bad discussion, and you're making distinctions and things that you shouldn't make. You're trying to distinguish yourself. Many of you are trying to distinguish yourself as a modern American, and you're not even an ancient American, let alone an American that now is free. As a matter of fact, you should want to be, if anything, a non-citizen national, right? So you can live more privately. Even if you don't know how to do the paperwork, you should start living more privately than publicly, or more against the system, or learn how to be in the system, but not of it. But many of us are going to make sure that we're of it. And you're of it because you don't think you can live above it. Because what's more exceptional than an American? Right? Now watch these lies. If somebody wants to look these up, by the way, check me. Matter of fact, if somebody wants to look these up just to verify what number we are, because I don't know what number, the so-called United States corporation is on these things. But if America was so exceptional, why is America not number one in education? If America is so exceptional, why is it not number one in marriage? If America is exceptional, why is it not number one in the amount of persons that are in it? If America is so exceptional, why is it not number one in safety? If America is so exceptional, why is it not number one in belief? If America is so exceptional, why is it not number one in the value of its money? See, you have to realize, you've been taught for so long that something's exceptional that you've been taught to deny what you see. If America is so exceptional, why is America about to be, what is it, 38 trillion in debt? I can't look it up online right now, but I believe, aren't you getting close to 38 trillion in debt? And still try to be an American, not realizing that that means that you have to pay to make sure that you keep America afloat, even if it means paying, with your blood, sweat, and tears for the rest of your life. Shalom, Minister Raj, how you doing? Right? If America is so exceptional, if the system that America has created is so exceptional, why is it that you still have persons who can't be given what they owe, right? They can't get any type of, especially according to, don't talk about what Pastor Kofi says. I would like for you at some point, read what the United Nations says. We talked about this a long time ago, so we have this recorded. It might be on our Patreon, I'm not sure, but we have it recorded. If you go and look and do the research, the United Nations tells you what reparations is supposed to look like. And the United States government gave reparations to slave owners. The United States, quiet as kept, was making money off concentration camps, and it made sure it gave reparations and still does give reparations to Jewish persons. Not even saying that they shouldn't. If they did what they did to those people, they should give them something. How you doing, Satrina? Oh, thanks for being part of the community, officially, or at least over here, right? America is supposed to be exceptional. What are you exceptional in? America leads the way because we're exceptional. Was America the first country to get rid of chattel slavery? Even when it wasn't exceptional for the whole country to have it. That's why you had to fight, by the way. You know, you taught the North was versus the South, it was slavery. It was those that wanted slavery and those that didn't. That's kind of sort of true, right? What they actually, and it was states' rights, that's kind of sort of true as well. The fight was actually against rich plantation owners. It's always the 1% of the 1% of the 1% of the 1%. Rich plantation owners made their money, and therefore everybody who worked under them made their money off of chattel slavery. Those in the North were starting to compete and have a system where they wanted everybody to believe you could compete over capital, which is a lie too, and you still become enslaved and entrapped in it, but it doesn't quite look like chattel slavery and feel like it. You're just enslaved in the brain. You'll have prisons, you'll have plantations you can have persons still make money off of, but you know, you'll have persons that are more willing to participate because they believe that if they do what you do, that everything's an even playing field. And so they were having more results like that to where the elite in the North were making that. So the fight was against the elite in the South. The South didn't like it, and therefore they fought and got all these persons who they told that you're better because you own slaves, or at least you could be like us and own slaves. You should fight with us. And they told all the persons up north, hey, we're against slavery, even though they had slaves in the North. Don't forget that one of the places, some of the places to be listed that Abraham Lincoln gave reparations to is Maryland, right? Especially if you know about the Eastern Shore where Harriet Tubman is from, right? Maryland. But also don't forget, he gave slave owners in Washington, D.C. reparations. Don't forget that any president up and through 18, which means 2 presidents past Lincoln, any president that was president of the United States of America was a slave owner. Simply because you had slaves in the White House. How you get rid of slavery, but you got slavery in the White House? See, you were taught American exceptionalism, and when we teach this stuff, it begins to break the fabric. It begins to break this mindset that everything that the so-called, and I'm not trying to say all white persons are evil. We don't do that here. I just want you to know for the time especially, right? If we're using these colonial terms, right? Right? These social terms, so-called white persons who were on high back then, who were making money off of chattel slavery. They made it even after slavery was abolished. Did they not? Right? What did you call somebody on the plantation after slavery ended? Anybody recall? It's not that, right? You call what? If you were doing something to crops after chattel slavery and were still enslaved, you just weren't officially a slave, but you still were under somebody's ownership until you worked your contract off. What did they call you? So we act like it went away. Well, indentured servant, but we're sharecroppers. Sharecroppers are still slaves. And guess what? New York State, huge place for sharecroppers. By the way, not long time ago, I'm talking about 1960s, 1970s, 1950s to 70s. Don't forget that there were chattel slaves, right, that didn't know that slavery ended and were still slaves and have been on film talking about their experience, some of them still alive. They were slaves until the 1970s. You guys know that, right? In the South. It's on wax. It used to be a Netflix special and everything. I forget what it's called, right? I knew it even before then, so I've never watched the special. I don't know what the special is called. But in the 70s, there were persons, and there were men and women who talked about their experience of being enslaved in the 1970s. You were told that chattel slavery ended in the 1800s, in 1865. You were told that it ended in 1862, Emancipation Proclamation. In Texas as well. Also, too, don't forget that in Georgia, was it 2021, 2022, somewhere around there, maybe 2023. I feel like it's, time flies, but somewhere after 2020. After 2020 began, right? So after this decade you're in the 2020s, in the 20s, if you will, right? In the 2020s, in Georgia, there were so-called Mexicans and so-called black persons who were freed from slavery in Georgia. Chattel slavery. Not from imprisonment, which is also chattel slavery, but it's allowed by the 14th Amendment. Right? But if you teach this, somebody has to get away from telling you, oh man, you could talk about slavery like it was so close. It was so long ago. I heard somebody the other day talking about slavery was 400 years ago, 1865. Even if you believe that's when it ended, that's not 400 years. Matter of fact, if you get your math correct, see, can I help somebody with something? Do you know that it is possible for somebody to be born in the 1800s and have a grandchild that's alive in the 2000s? I forget which president it is, but there's actually a president who got married to somebody when his wife passed away. He was a very old man. He got married to a much younger woman. She had a child. That child had a wife and everything. His wife passed away. He got married to a much younger woman. And so basically, I think the grandchild might have finally passed away a couple years ago. Might still be alive as far as I know. I don't know. But like at least until a couple years ago, he was still alive. His daddy was born in the 1800s, right? And he was living in the 2020s. Right? This means that when somebody says this stuff was long ago, no. Somebody who's alive today, or at least was alive up until a couple of years ago, is still an influence on today. That means somebody's granddaddy, right, 2 generations before him, was able through his son to instill certain things that allowed for him and put things together to allow for the mindset of those who were in charge and had slaves to be something that still exists today. Now, I know that's an extreme case, but let's do it like this. Do you think that it's impossible to do the math? And I'm not talking about just young persons, because we forget to respect our elders. You know, there's persons 70, 80, 90, 100 years old still alive today. But if you say, well, some of you were so disrespectful to act like they don't count, I think that you need to get yourself together. But that being said, fine. Somebody in their 50s and 60s surely makes a lot of decisions today and still works and still teaches and things like that. So let's say they had a parent that was 40 years old when they had them, right? Or let's just go back 60 years from today. Somebody's 60 years old, right? We go 20, so what are we, 2025? So let's go 2015, 2005, 1995. 1985, 1975, 1965. This person was alive when Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was preaching, talking about it's a cruel joke to tell somebody to pull up himself up by his bootstraps when he has no boots. That would have been 1965. 3 years into their existence, they would have had one of their major memories, even at 3 years old, hearing that he had lost his life. But there are persons that will tell you that Dr. King was so far away. Now imagine they had parents, and let's not even go 60 years, let's just say 40 years, their parents had them at around 40. You know, persons can have children around age 40, can they not? Okay. So you had 60. You have 40 years before that. Okay. So we said 65, so 55. 45, 35, 1925. 1925, you know, interesting when lynchings are coming back, right? So that means that their parent was born around that, influencing the decisions. Let's say their parents had them just 40 years before. 40 is usually a generation, right? So let's say 40 years before that. 1915, 1905, 1895, 1885. KKK is starting to rise. Reconstruction. Promises as far as 40 acres and a mule, or what's known as document 15 or document 150 is the actual name for it. You know, like they have, you know, like people say Obamacare, but it's actually known as the Affordable Health Care Act, right? Well, the same way they do that, people say 40 acres and a mule. 40 acres and a mule is actually 15 or 150. I can't remember, it's 150 or 15. By the way, if you go with this to Savannah, Georgia, the church that's there, that's the same place that General Sherman had the meeting to determine, they would get document 15 or, you know, 40 acres and a mule. A lot of stuff happened at this place. I was amazed. Right? This place is like the hub for everything down there. It was crucial, right? So when General Sherman does his march and everything, we play a part in history there too, right? Because they asked they asked for leadership, and 19 pastors were chosen, including the pastor of this church that we're going to be going to in Savannah, Georgia. And when you go there, the pastor at the time, I think he's the fourth pastor, or the fifth, maybe he's the third or fourth pastor, not sure which one, of the congregation in their history. And when he's asked what should they do, the 19 pastors, they basically come together. They say, we don't really want anything from you except to be able to govern ourselves. You said you were alive. Yeah, you were alive when MLK was assassinated. Many were. My father was alive when MLK was assassinated. But everybody goes, that was so long ago. You don't think that affects the next generation, one generation removed? But you guys still say September 11th, never forget. Some of y'all still, was it December 6th or December 7th, 1941, Pearl Harbor, never forget. Some of y'all still doing July 4th, 1776, never forget. But you act like chattel slavery is something that doesn't affect us, not just my people, even those who are against us, or even those who are so-called allies, or those who become part of our nation and we become one. Does it not still affect us? Is it not something we need to learn from? Is it something that we should exclude from our teaching? Of course not. Right? But the goal is to keep American exceptionalism. I'm going to say this and I'm going to end this. I hope by now you've seen I haven't really focused on Republican or Democrat except for, a fact to help us to be able to reveal truth. So I'm not pulling this out. He just so happens to be the president now. I'm not pulling this out to be like, vote against this person. I don't believe in voting. Right? It hasn't done anything for my people so far. It's not going to do anything for us tomorrow. And there's a lot of my people that would disagree with that. That's okay. Right? You were alive when MLK was assassinated as well. See? So, but persons will say that stuff it's so long ago. Why are you bringing it up? Matter of fact, MLK has had to become the enemy of the state now, right? Because Charlie Kirk just died. And when Charlie Kirk died, persons started making a weird argument. They started saying, well, Charlie Kirk was just as great as MLK. And persons such as myself, we talked about this a couple times, it's recorded. Persons such as myself were like, what? No, not even close. And then they got upset about that, right? And then they started dogging MLK. MLK is evil. Now he's become evil. I already admitted to some stuff that we should be careful about. We should know the truth and reveal truth and stand our ground on the truth, right? 10 toes down on truth. That being said, right? We're not going to play this weird game to where we're going to denounce. Once again, now we got to denounce somebody because we got to put Charlie Kirk. You're going to see next year, Charlie Kirk's birthday. Which one, right? Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday is going to come up, and you're going to see persons start arguing over this stuff. It's designed. The system is designed to keep you and I fighting. That's why I don't worry about getting into that fight. I'm trying to make sure that we have justice, right? Law, righteousness. I don't care about being right. I want to be righteous. If we live righteously, the other stuff takes care of itself, right? We don't even have to give any thoughts towards tomorrow, for tomorrow takes care of things concerning itself, including even the evil that's about to come, right? We need to be focused on what moves we need to make and being obedient in this day and realizing that every day is something that's part of eternity. If we keep building on that, we'll be all right, right? So anyways, last thing though, this is ultimately all the stuff we're talking about today is why Donald Trump, no matter how much stuff he does that you would think is indefensible, is always defensible. Because remember recall, I said something earlier in this today as we take our leave, or tonight as we take our leave. Do not forget that Donald Trump is not exceptional because he's rich. Right? Do not think that Donald Trump is considered to be exceptional just because he's white. Do not think that Donald Trump is considered to be exceptional simply because because he's the president. The reason why Donald Trump is considered to be exceptional is because American exceptionalism says he is. The system that he's over says that even if he goes somewhere else and tells you that he's literally stopped wars between countries that have never been at war, he must be exceptional because he's the president. Remember, George Washington was ripping the teeth out of his slaves' mouths, had plenty of slaves, right? Married a woman who actually had one drop of black blood in her, at least. That's why she's known as Brunette, en le français, right? Brunette, it means brownish. That's what brunette actually means. So somebody who passes for white was considered to be brunette. Now you just say brunette has dark hair, maybe a tan, right? But back then, a brunette was actually brownish. That's what the word means, brunette, en le français, right? You don't realize that you speak a lot of French, so you don't study what these words mean in French. Brunette actually means brownish, right? So George Washington, who liked the swirl, got down with the swirl, had that little jungle fever, if you will. No offense to anybody that does. Sorry, I had to remember. I apologize. I don't mean anything bad. I'm just saying, he's somebody, in his case, that is crazy work, because here he is, this white person enslaving everybody, this and that or whatever, and R-word and women and stuff like that too, right? But at the same time, is hiding the fact, and everybody's leaving alone the fact they don't even want you to know in history. His wife was actually a black woman who had been taught to hate herself so much she was owning slaves and trying her best to look like she was, as the French would say, blanc cajon, or she wouldn't even be blanc cajon or blanc petit. In other words, they had big whites and little whites. She had to be one of the ones working for them, but if she worked well enough for them, she was allowed to have slaves. That's who George Washington married, is a woman that wanted to come on the come up. Why would you have way more slaves than him and go ahead and come down to his level and make him all great? Not just because you have a crush on him, but because you marrying into what's called white. See, American exceptionalism, just because he was a so-called American, or, so-called what we think of an American, he was better. See how dangerous it is that this woman, she didn't probably marry out of love or whatever. Maybe she grew to love him and stuff like that, but she needs to marry somebody that will protect her. And protection back then was to hate thyself. I'm not here to teach against, what do they call it? Mixed. By the way, there's no such thing as mixed race. You are what your father is, right? And your mother carries the blood and DNA as well to a certain degree. But you are what your father is, right? You marry into your father's family. That's why, right? Or if you marry into a family, even in Israel, right? That's why even a man must become circumcised and adopted in, because you are who you marry into. From a biblical point of view, somebody would hate that. Some of you might hate me saying, I'm just telling you, the way that you look at it in your modern sensibilities, even somewhat in your Christian sensibilities, they still carry that, right? Right? So you are who you marry into. Now, why would she marry into that? Because back then, it's guaranteed she's going to be taken care of. Right? That's American exceptionalism. American exceptionalism has you thinking that John Adams and John Quincy Adams never owned slaves. They both were in the White House. That means that they owned slaves. American exceptionalism tells you Thomas Jefferson didn't know what to do. As a matter of fact, he was so inundated and so attracted to black folk. No, he wasn't attracted. He would just use them to get off. He was attracted, but he couldn't admit it. He would even write down and say things like black women, or he would say N-word females, were considered to be too hairy, too smelly, too ugly, while he was having all these babies with them, and wouldn't even consider his babies to be his children. Those are just abominations running around. How you doing, Brother Dwayne? That's what they talk. I'm not here to tell you that I'm against whatever. We've talked. We're about a nation over here, so I'm not doing the white versus black thing or whatever, or the light skin versus the dark skin. I'm just telling you a fact that hopefully reveals truth. You can look all this stuff up to see if I'm lying. Right? When you look at this stuff, you'll see very clearly. Right? You were taught to make sure that you look at President Obama, because we were crying. I was there in Chicago when he did his speech. And I was there in D.C., even though I didn't come outside, it was too cold. But I was in D.C. when he did the speech to be for the inauguration. And even though I didn't even necessarily believe all the stuff people were telling, I knew better. I still was like, oh, it's such a great moment in our story. And we did all that, and we forgot this dude was like putting so much stuff in the legislation that now, he's really fractured us as a people to the point to where now you got FBA versus African American versus African versus Native American versus Negro versus Israelite versus Hebrew Israelite, right? We don't even think about the damage that was done. So I'm telling you, Trump has to be defended because he is the top, at least he's the face of, he's not the top, but he's the face of American exceptionalism. And if I can just put this on here, Holy Spirit, hold me accountable, please. Stop me if you say this is not the will of God, right? I want to be obedient because I didn't put this in earlier. pray about this. Don't just believe this. I'm not saying this is prophecy. You better listen to whatever the prophet says. Yada yada. Pray about this. Seek Yah. Study. See if what I'm about to say makes sense. Don't be so concerned about Trump and what he's doing right now. Be concerned about what the person who comes behind Trump will do. I'm not saying it's not possible that Trump could find a way to finesse his way into a third term. I don't believe he will. That being said, I'm not saying that some of you are starting to say that Obama's going to try to come back. I'm not saying he will. What I'm saying is that if Trump has shown the way. He's shown you that a lot of this stuff is hypocritical and that they don't live by it anyways. And what's going to happen is the next person up is going to begin to tell you and I, whether they be Republican or Democrat, they're going to say they're going to need to do the same stuff, if not worse, to the Constitution and all that Trump did. And they're going to do it saying that, hey, Trump messed everything up so bad doing it, I'm going to have to use the same tactics he used to reverse what he did. And many persons will look the other way when the next person does it, because they'll say, well, Trump messed it up so bad, we got to trust. This is why we talked about earlier today, Psalm 22. Our demise has what? Been grossly exaggerated. Stop looking to them as if Yah has forsaken us. Look into the hills from which cometh our help. Our help doesn't come from Trump. It doesn't come from Obama. It doesn't come from whoever else is next. Our help cometh from Yahweh. He who bara shamayam arat, he who made heaven and earth. Amen. All right. Love you, family. I'm going to do my best to be on tomorrow. Right? I won't get, well, let's just say I'll be on tomorrow. I'm not sure how long I'll be on, but I'll be on tomorrow for the rising only. Tuesday is technically my day off. So unless we're supposed to have a conversation or I've been trying to reach out to you, Brother Dwayne, I apologize. I think I saw right before I was getting ready to go on that you had reached right back out to me. I don't know how I missed it, so please forgive me. We'll try to see if we can to catch each other. But tomorrow I'll be on at least for the live session. Wednesday, I shall be off for the whole day, but Elder Tamara will be on 8:30 p.m. New York time on Wednesday. And then when we come back on Thursday, we will be in place to do what we do. Elder and I will get things started with the prayer line at 7 a.m. New York time. 8 a.m. New York time. We're going to start getting it in Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Brothers, don't forget this Saturday is the first Saturday of the month, I believe, right? I think October 31st is on Friday. So, yeah, it is. So Saturday will be November the 1st, so we'll have our men's meeting then. Everything should be back on track and back in alignment then. Emails and everything should be, as far as I know, updated. If you're not getting emails for some reason, let me know. But everybody should be getting emails and everything. By Saturday, I plan on putting out an updated version of the calendar. So if you didn't get a calendar already, or if for some reason it doesn't come out, or you don't get it on Saturday, by Saturday evening, let me know. Don't forget also too, on all the stuff we sent out, July 18th, definite changes you can make. July 18th, New York, somewhere around New York. I don't know if it's exactly New York, but I believe it's New York. Will be coming up there to do baptism for Pastor Houston and them, and therefore SOC members that can come up that day. Go ahead and set some time aside if you want to get baptized on that day, July 18th. We'll see you there. April 1st, I believe, is supposed to be Passover, and so that probably means a couple days leading up to Passover. We'll be meeting in Tennessee. Don't know exactly what we'll be doing, but we'll be meeting in Tennessee. We'll try to see if we can even get some housing or get some kind of apartments or something close to each other, hotels, etc. By the way, if we're going to do that, let's make sure that we're obedient to it as well. So we're going to try and start getting that stuff together. I'm not sure if it's going to be this weekend or the following weekend. Everybody who came to Feast of Tabernacles, we're going to look at having two meetings. Those who are in leadership positions for Feast of Tabernacles, we're going to have a meeting with everybody. You know what? I don't think we need to do that. We'll have a meeting with everybody, whether you join us virtually or physically, for Feast of Tabernacles, talk about what we got out of it, what we can do to make it better, et cetera, et cetera. And start working towards that already. Also, too, we're going to talk about our holy days. Ministerial staff, we don't have a meeting this Thursday, but the following Thursday, we'll have our meeting. That'll be the first Thursday of November, and we'll get back on track with those. You should be seeing new versions of your groups that you're going to be in the text streams with. We're going to change some stuff up. SOC West, even though we're still going to make sure we keep y'all together, we're probably going to put you together with another group to make sure that you guys are getting as much meeting and all that stuff with everybody else. So be ready for that. We're going to update some things, and especially since I'm over a lot of different things, I might consolidate a bunch of groups and just bring everybody together. But April 1st will be Passover. And then don't forget April 2nd through the 8th, that is the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Will be up, I think it's Kentucky, where the replica of Noah's Ark is. So we'll look at meeting up there. So that's a few places we have. If you do have suggestions for us, on a place or somewhere that you think it would be would be great for us to start doing our due diligence and making sure we can do some kind of revival, let me know. We need a few things. We're looking at being outside. For those who are going to start looking, we need it to be outside somewhere, right? So the weather's got to be okay. We do have a huge event tent for those who are with us for Feast of Tabernacles, or you saw the live sessions from there. That big, huge white event tent, we will have that at our disposal. So we don't necessarily have to have, indoors per se, but we do need it will need to be outside. I'm sorry, not indoor, but we don't necessarily need to have an awning or something, but we do need to have and it needs to be outside if we can, preferably. We need to have a place where we can make sure it's safe, where we can watch ourselves. And we probably, if we do it like in a city or something like that, we need to make sure that we get permission before we get there, which we have all the documentation we need, but just saying somebody will need to make sure that on our behalf, or at least you can set up something for somebody for us to talk to make sure that we can start getting those things in order, okay? So we don't have a specific date for that or a specific place for that. Other than that, Detroit, we're trying to come to you guys this year, so so we're running out of places and stuff. We're gonna try to meet together physically for the men this year, next year in 2026. We're gonna try to meet together physically for the women in 2026 as well. Don't forget that we're gonna do Purim and Hanukkah. We're gonna add those two. Those are not holy days we're commanded to have, yet they are, Israelite traditions. And them being Israelite traditions, we will do them properly and biblically. And we will also try, one's going to be at the beginning of the year, one's going to be at the end of the year, right? So we're going to try to make sure that we do both of those. We're going to try to make sure that we do those things properly, and that for those two, Purim and for Hanukkah, we're going to try to make sure that everybody can actually meet up in spaces together wherever you are in the country. So we're going to really work towards that. So Hanukkah is a big deal, so wherever you are, we're going to try to make sure you guys come together. So that means that we're going to have some groups meeting, whether ministerial staff is there or not. I don't mind coming on whatever meetings I need to, but whether ministerial staff is there or not, we need to we're going to have some meetings, some persons who can come together, some persons that can be responsible for certain things. We can all do it on Zoom together, right? But we want to really work towards actually meeting up with each other and working towards what Yah has for us as creating a safe place. All right, so I thank you all. Appreciate you. It was great to see you again, Sir Stephen. Shalom to everybody, by the way. I appreciate you all. Much love to you. We look forward to talking to you tomorrow in the Rising. Nothing in the evening, just tomorrow in the Rising. I've been off for a little while, so just as a reminder that we're back. I'm gonna come on tomorrow, and we'll do, I don't know how long it'll be, but we'll do our live session in the Rising. All right, love your family. Take care. Thank you for being on. Thank you for being attentive. Prayerfully you learned a little something. To give you a little heads up too, we are looking at Thursday and Friday will be Q&A, because it's been a while since we've been on. So Thursday and Friday will be Q&A. And then, we'll do Saturday, and I believe if I'm not mistaken, I believe on Sunday, we're going to start with our new series. Our new series is going to be talking about, I don't know what the exact title is, but it's something along the lines of, to reverse the curse, we must reverse the lies. So we're going to start getting into some of the stuff we were talking about, reversing those lies and things. But Thursday and Friday, get your questions together and everything. We'll be ready to answer those on Thursday and Friday. Love you all. Appreciate you. Continue to do well, brothers. Don't forget, once again, this Saturday, we're back on track for men's meeting. And as always, we give our honor and praise to the Most High. We give our praise and honor to him for my wife, the Honorable Maya. And remember, as always, beloved, that you are loved. You're necessary. You're majestic. You're fearfully and wonderfully made. And you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in the system no longer have to be of it. Shalom. Achaba. Much love. Take care.